Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another walk and talk. A little bit of a wet and miserable day here in the United Kingdom, and yeah, we've had a little bit of a break in the weather, so I thought I'd grab the camera, go out for a bit of a walk and kind of talk about what's going on at the moment in the space, right? So as I kind of get into the video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button, I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗀𝗀. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, why not check it out? Link is in the description down below. So let's kind of talk about what the obvious, right? What's been going on? Well, the SEC have, of course, delayed more Bitcoin spot ETFs. This isn't unusual. This is actually something that I've been talking about on these walk and talks for quite a while. And the way that I see 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 kind of positioning himself is very much that he's not going to approve one anytime soon. And at the moment, we've seen some of the smaller Bitcoin spot ETFs, if that's what you want to call them, kind of being delayed, not rejected, but just delayed, you know, kicking that can down the road a little bit further. And, well, I think it's going to happen probably in the next few weeks or so that the big boys will get theirs rejected as well. So the likes of BlackRock, for example, will have theirs kind of delayed, and their cans will also be kicked down the road a little bit further. Inevitably, what I think is going to happen here is that 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 will be out by the time we actually see a Bitcoin spot ETF being approved. And that's kind of the only way I can really see this kind of going at the moment. I think while 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 is at the SEC, I just cannot see how someone who's done 180 on his position in kind of cryptocurrency assets is going to, at the moment, approve a Bitcoin spot ETF. I do think, though, the approval is inevitable. I think it will happen. It's just a case of, you know, how many rejections or how many delays have to happen beforehand, right? And so I think with everything that's been going on at the moment, there's been a lot of hype, a lot of kind of hopes and dreams pinned on the kind of approval of a Bitcoin spot ETF. And realistically speaking, I think a lot of those hopes, those dreams are going to be shattered in the coming weeks and months. We can kind of see this within the price action of Bitcoin at the moment as well, where we have seen it kind of being a bit stagnant recently, kind of just hovering at these key areas and not really moving much. But it is allowing kind of fear to kind of seep into the market. Specifically as Bitcoin finds itself at that point in time where this ETF approval is basically just kind of urging Bitcoin's price to continue this move to the upside. Now, I've sort of spoken about this previously in quite a few different videos, how the volume profiles of Bitcoin, whether you look at Binance or Bitstamp or any of these other exchanges, the volume profiles are really low. This essentially means there hasn't really been that much demand in the market for Bitcoin. So even though there's lots of hopes and dreams pinned on a Bitcoin spot ETF, it hasn't really been backed up by volume in the market. And this is a kind of first red flag, if you will, that has kind of been waved around quite a bit. Obviously, we do see as well, you know, a little bit of retail buying, but we're not really seeing any major activity. And so we have to kind of consider that everything that's been going on at the moment for Bitcoin in terms of price action could just be market makers trying to drive that price up higher so the likes of FTX can liquidate those assets a little bit higher in price. And the only winners here potentially are all the companies, the exchanges that were in financial difficulty before the surge in 2023. Okay, so just to kind of put this on the record, we did see an increase in demand to a point, or an increase in volume at the beginning of the year, but pretty much since March, the volumes are so low, they're pretty much non-existent. And so we have to consider what that means. Essentially, it means that we're still bearish right now. Now, it's not to say that the bottom of Bitcoin, you know, might not be it. I think that the bottom of the price action of Bitcoin that it potentially has bottomed out in this bear market, but I don't think we're in a bullish market yet. Okay, I know there's a lot of hopes and dreams kind of pinned on the idea that we're in a bullish market, but I don't think we are, and I don't think we're going to be until we actually start to see institutional level investors flowing back into the market for Bitcoin. And this will be signaled through the wallet counts and things like that that we do on our membership website, where you take a look at the on-chain data and you count up how many wallets have more than 1,000 Bitcoin in them. They haven't really been accumulating anything yet. And so we know that Bitcoin whales potentially aren't getting involved just yet, and I think they're waiting for an approval. Once the approval comes, once a Fed pivot happens, I expect a move down in the price action, and I think that's really where the institutional investors start to really get involved. And of course, when the Bitcoin spot ETF happens, you'll see a whole flurry of additional institutional level investors, family offices and so forth, really getting involved in Bitcoin. But until we kind of see an approval, I don't think we're likely to see this bullish market. And I think the approval in itself is only going to symbolize what is coming. It doesn't necessarily mean that a product that of a Bitcoin spot ETF is going to be, there available to use right away. I still expect a 6 months delay from the approval through to actually launching a product. So that's going to put us, potentially out there in June 2024 before we actually even see a product. And when we see a product, we're not expecting instantaneous billions of dollars flowing in either. There's going to be a slow and steady pace to the inflows of, say, $200 billion flowing into Bitcoin. So I don't expect it to kind of be instantaneous. I think this is going to be a bit of a slow burn, and I think that's going to potentially actually kind of get a lot of retail investors in some hot water, specifically those who are over leveraged, kind of overexpose themselves at spot levels and things like that. There's going to be an essence of a certain amount of retail investors who are going to succumb to selling pressure just because they are struggling with the day-to-day. Okay, so they're going to have their mortgages to pay and all these kind of things. And I think this is all going to come to a bit of a head in 2024, and we are likely to see a bit of a pull back in price, and that's going to fuel selling pressure, which will then compound that selling and the drop in price as well. So I think for the most part, I'm expecting kind of like a 20 to 30% reduction in Bitcoin wallets that have over 1 Bitcoin in there. I expect there's going to be quite a bit of selling pressure at that point. Not the most amount, not like a major movement in the market, but a 20 to 30% reduction in retail investors, which will equate to about 3 million Bitcoin entering into the marketplace for sale, which is a pretty sizable chunk. And then of course we can talk about Bitcoin halving event. A lot of people believe that a Bitcoin halving event is going to drive the market up further. It's a catalyst for a big bull market, and I completely disagree with that premise. Ultimately, the Bitcoin halving event really only impacts the supply of Bitcoin. There's currently 19.5 million Bitcoin out in circulation, which means there's only 1.5 million that can only ever be minted or mined again in the market, right? And all we're talking about halving is the returns for that additional 1.5. It has absolutely zero impact on the 19.5 million circulating supply. So we already know that the majority of the supply of Bitcoin is already out there, and that's the most, the thing that we should be concerned with overall. What is going to drop that supply, and what is going to increase the demand, so that our supply and demand can be imbalanced, so that we can see a bullish market. And the Bitcoin halving event simply won't do that outside of pure speculation. So don't get me wrong, it will be fuel in the fire there for Bitcoin halving event in terms of pure speculation and kind of people misunderstanding what it's doing. So there's going to be little bits around that, but for the most part, it's in itself isn't going to be that big catalyst for a bullish market. I do think that really comes from the Bitcoin spot ETFs, and I do think it's going to come from a Fed pivot, as historically the Fed pivot is what has seen these big drops in the market and has led us out into the next bullish market. So I think we're kind of at a critical moment for Bitcoin, and a critical moment for crypto space as a whole. There's a lot of hopes pinned on Bitcoin spot ETFs. We've seen more delays. I think they're going to continue. But I do have confidence in the long term. I think long term, this space is exactly where we need to be. We just need to be dollar cost averaging, building out those positions and getting ourselves ready for what is coming. Let me know what your thoughts are all down in the comments below, but I'm going to wrap this video up right there. If you have found it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And if you haven't yet joined us in Discord, what are you waiting for? Check it out. Link is in the description down below. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.